We're really excited to be able to share with you today about the opportunity that you guys helped us have to go visit my parents where they're working in Benin, West Africa. It was a great time, and Joanna was commenting on the way over to church today. We both really didn't want to come back. Like we felt so at home there, both with the missionaries and the local people. And we think it's ironic that on the day we are wearing African outfits made for the heat and talking about the place we didn't want to leave, the very reason is outside happening. But no, we're excited to share with you. And we thank you for this opportunity. So yes, to explain the outfits, this is very traditional for the African people. To them, this would be like top-notch fancy. Like this shows you've got money. To be honest, we had these outfits tailor-made, her by a seamstress, me by a tailor, and it only cost us like total like maybe $25, $30 to get both outfits made. But to them, that's a good bit of money. So it was a really cool thing that we wanted to do. And as you'll see on our first picture, here's us on the right. My parents are in the middle, Ken and Sarah Beckley, and my brother and his now fiance, Andrew and Maddie, are on the left. And my parents have several outfits already made that match. But the two of us and Andrew and Maddie wanted to get matching outfits made while we were there as well. So that was something fun we were able to do. So this is the group of us. This is the main group we were with. We traveled with Andrew and Maddie on the planes to go visit my two parents who were there. So just to start working through these, if my clicker will work. I don't know why it doubled. There we go. This is our team. So this is the team that my parents work with, two other missionary families that are with our mission board, Faith Baptist Mission. On the left is the Marshall family. And I actually knew, so Joe and Amy Marshall, I actually knew each of their parents better than I know them. Both sets of their parents worked as missionaries in Mali with my parents and the larger team before we had to move. So I'm familiar with their larger family, but I actually never hung out with them or their kids. Both of these pictures are a little old. Their kids are a little older now. Will, their oldest, the oldest Marshall boy, is now, I think, finishing up his junior year of high school. So he's got one more year of high school left. So that gives you an idea of how old their kids are. On the right is the Ovenels, Colin and Tina Ovenel. Colin is the team leader there. So he is the director of the Benin FBM team. So he's the main liaison between the team and the mission board in the States. So Colin and Tina and their three kids, Ethan, Eliana, and Elias. I think they have a theme going there. But when we started working with Ovenels several years ago, they only had Ethan. Both Eliana and Elias have been born since my family's been working with them. So it's been really cool to see them grow up. And I haven't seen them in almost 10 years, so it was crazy how much the kids have grown since I'd seen them last. But great families, very passionate about the ministry there. And we've actually been in touch with both of them for a while, just talking about not only preparing for this trip, but the possibilities ahead. So that's the team that serves with my family, and if we, Lord willing, end up there, those are the families we'd be working with. Just to give you an idea of where Benin is geographically, this is, you can recognize the hump of Africa. That's the country of Benin. I don't know if you can see the dot, but this is Mali, where my parents used to work, where I grew up. Then we went and worked in Niger for a year, but now we've been down Benin. To give you a reference, that's Liberia right there. So the trip that just went to Liberia not too long ago, they were only 3 countries over from where we are at. So the culture and the people are very, very similar people group and environment that we're working in as the Liberia team. Just to give you a better view of exactly where we're at, these are the 3 relevant cities. So the red one at the top is where we used to work, but because of safety issues and terrorist forces getting close, the missionaries had to leave that town and come down, and we are currently working in that middle town, the yellow one. That's where my parents currently are. And the bottom one is the capital city on the coast where we flew into. So my parents had to drive down to pick us up on the coast and then drive back up. But really, it only took 8, 9 hours. Would have been a lot faster if the roads weren't so bad. To give you an idea of land mass, Benin is about the size, land mass-wise, of Pennsylvania. So it's not that big of a country. You could easily drive from one end to the other in a day, depending on traffic and road conditions. So that's to give you a good idea of where all of that is at. Now Joanna will begin talking about our trip.
Where to start? So we left here on the 9th.
The 10th.
No, we flew out on the 10th. We left here on the 9th.
Yeah, we left here.
Spent the night over in Maryland with my brother-in-law, the one right under him. From there, we flew out about mid-morning on the 10th. First flight was short. It was only about an hour to JFK. And from JFK, we flew one of our longer trips to Paris. And once we got to Paris, it was like 6 a.m. It was a very long flight. We got off. We tried to find somewhere to stow luggage, but couldn't, so we ended up carrying our luggage with us. But then we took a metro bus line into Paris because we had about a 10-hour layover. But it takes about 2 hours to get through security and all the way into the city, so we had to be careful about that so that we could get there and back before our flights. So once we were in Paris, we stopped there at the bistro, and that was really cool because it's actually the Eiffel Tower bistro next to the Eiffel Tower, so that was exciting, and it was right outside the metro line, so that was easy. Got breakfast there, it was really yummy. And then we went straight to the Eiffel Tower, which was really cool. Never thought I would be able to say I got to see the Eiffel Tower in person, but that was a lot of fun. Walking around it, you couldn't go up in it unless you paid and took the time, and we didn't have a lot of time, so we just walked around the base. And from there, we split off by very insistence of Andrew for reasons. So we went sightseeing while he took her on a bridge under the river and proposed. She was not having it. He wanted to take a bunch of pictures, and she knew we had a time crunch and wanted to get going. So she wasn't taking her backpack off, didn't want to get comfortable, didn't want to take pictures, wanted to get going. And he finally just turned around and popped the question. She's like, "Are you serious right now?" So we met from there at the Arc de Triomphe. Again, time's sake, didn't go up in it, but got to go walk around it and see it. But somebody thought we were going to be late meeting them and made me rush the entire way. And I ended up getting very, very sick the rest of the trip. Puked my guts up the entire 2-hour ride back.
Yeah, she doesn't speed walk well.
I was already dehydrated too, yeah. Thank you.
Lesson learned.
And the next 6-hour flight was miserable. But I was thankfully feeling better by the time we got there. Andrew and Maddie got ahead of us in security and out the door. I don't know if we told you before going, but this was a surprise for his parents. They knew Andrew and Maddie were coming, but they didn't know we were. So they got ahead and met them at the car. And Andrew kept stalling for us because because we're white Americans, had to have our luggage checked. So he was stalling, that he's like, "We gotta get a selfie, and oh, look at the stars, and let's talk." And my father-in-law was like, "Can we get going now?" So by the time we made it out of security, which thankfully didn't take too long, and followed Maddie's kind of cryptic text to where they were parked. And Dad was kind of facing our direction when we walked up, but Mom wasn't.
He kind of saw us coming a little early.
But he was like, "What are you guys doing here?"
And as you can tell by my mom's face in the picture, she was very, very happy and surprised. So yeah, it was great to see them and surprise them. The surprise was successful, so despite our worries.
So day 2, Thursday, we got to sleep in at the guest house there in the main city where the airport is. And then we went to the beach, which was a lot of fun. Got to walk around in the sand. The tides are a little rough there, so it's not really smart to go swimming. There's too much of a rip current, but we got to splash our feet around in the water. And then we got to play with sea turtles. They were so cute. I absolutely loved them. We walked up, and the guy just handed me a giant pile of them. So we got to play with them for a while, got to see one of their nests. The guy goes and like every morning looks for nests and brings the eggs back and replants them, reburies them, so that they're in a safer area that won't get trampled on. So got to see a couple coming out of their shells. Shells were a really weird texture, was not expecting that. They are softer and more leathery than like a hard shell. So that was interesting. And then we got to let a couple go, and then, yeah, continued on from there, got to hold a crab. Climbed on some rocks, got to see the ocean waves.
They have a bunch of these big boulder dikes built to, because the current and waves are so strong on that beach, they have to build like dikes every mile or so on the beach to help break the waves and make it at least less dangerous for people walking there.
And then that evening we went to a second beach and then ate at a restaurant that's actually on the beach. Actually got to drink coffee soda, which was really cool. Very strange concept there. It was very sweet. We got to eat, lost the name.
Brochettes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pictures coming.
Which is basically meat and veggies that are on a stick and have been roasted over a spit and fire.
Shish kebab.
Yeah, pretty much. And those were really yummy. And then from there we went back and just chilled at the hotel for, not the hotel, the guest house for the evening. And the next day we got going.
And this thing you see on the, these are the plates they gave us at the restaurant, hand carved, just big wooden platters, different shapes. I think this was mine. I think it's supposed to be like a pepper or something. And Joanna just got a big square thing with some spots there. This one's a fish. But these brown things on the side, those are plantains. It's basically a different variety of banana. They taste a lot like bananas, but they don't ripen the same way. They're super sweet, and they're best eaten when they're cooked or fried. Because if you try to eat them raw, they're just really hard and have like a bitter aftertaste. So, but those are like common. Those are like French fries over there. Like that's the side you can get with every dish. But really good, one of our favorite things. And then meat sticks and different juices and stuff. So this restaurant was right on the beach that we were walking on, so we just had to walk back to the restaurant and eat. So that was pretty cool.
See that Maddie's eating. What's the name for that one too?
What? Oh, shawarma?
A shawarma. So she's actually vegan, so that was fun this trip, finding stuff that she could eat along the way.
Yeah.
It was a little challenging.
She got a shawarma is basically an African Middle Eastern wrap type thing, but they put different things in them. So this was the trip up north. The next day we drove north on Friday, and this was my view. The vehicle we were in had 3 seats and then like another bench seat in the back, but my dad had to fold down one of the seats to make room for all the luggage. We also had a bunch of all the big suitcases went on a roof rack that we have. But Andrew and Maddie and Joanna sat in the bench seat, and then I was sitting in the back seat, but you can see my knees right there. I'm sitting sideways with the pillow to cushion my knees, and I had another pillow behind me because I'm kind of sitting sideways.
Sorry, I get car sick.
Yeah, she gets car sick if she's in the back. And then this was my view out the back window. So it was really interesting because, again, these roads have tons of holes. These are some of the sights you would see on the road there, very common. First, there's loaded people. They carry things on their heads all the time, mostly the women, but from the time they can walk, they learn to carry things on their head, and they'll just walk. They can basically speed walk at a brisk pace, and they'll just be balancing it. You'll see it rocking back and forth, but they do a great job. Carry just about anything they can, so they have their hands free to carry lighter stuff. You can see this one lady has a real pile of stuff there, and these ladies, you can see she's holding them out there in plastic bags, just different kinds of snacks. Those would be in the main towns on the main roads. Like those are your street vendors, and they would just like, if you have to slow down for a speed bump or for someone in front of you, they'd take every chance to run up to your car and put the stuff in the window and say, buy my wares, buy my snacks and whatever. So very adamant that you buy their things. There's a guy selling some scarves or something, and he's got another whole bag of them on his head. And then this picture on the right gives you an idea of just general traffic. There really are no traffic rules. It's every man for himself out there. You got to put your nose out if you're going to get anywhere. Technically, you'll see in a couple other pictures, there was, at least on the main highways between the big cities, there's supposed to be a lane for motorcycles. Not all, most motorcycles don't even drive in there. They'll drive and weave in between all the trucks. So And then they have some other like little bicycle, like 3-wheel rickshaw things that are motorized as well that you'll see a lot of. So some more sites. There's another rickshaw thing, kind of like a motorcycle pickup, if you can think of that idea. A lot of those, but again, they just overload these things and use them till their last leg. Here's these guys in the yellow shirts. Those are moto taxis. They actually had ID numbers on their backs, and it's a whole thing there. Like they even have an app because smartphones are starting to become a thing. They have an app, and it's just like Uber or something here in the States. You can call a number, and the moto taxi will pick you up, and you can ride on the back of the motorcycle, and they'll take you where you want to go. But it's a very scary experience for someone who's not done it before. And even the motorcycles, you can see this guy's carrying a bunch of empty like jugs, and he's even got one on his lap. He did like at least 4. There's probably 2 more on the back and 1 on his lap. So they'd use every way possible to carry as much as possible. Here's some other things you'll see on motorcycles. This guy should have a wide load sign on his back. He's got a couple shovels and a bag of charcoal probably, and this guy's carrying 2 like big truck tires. And somehow they balance it. Like you can see them weave in and out, moving back and forth. Somehow they just get a feel and can balance it. You hardly ever see them fall over. And these were some of the most impressive. There's a motorcycle on a motorcycle. I can just imagine the conversation that morning. Hey, he goes to his neighbor's or friend's house and says, hey, my motorcycle's messed up. I can't get it to start. Can I borrow your motorcycle to take mine to the mechanic? And the friend probably didn't even bat an eye and say, sure, go for it. And they find a way. So it's pretty crazy what you see out there. Can any of you see what's in this car here on the left? Pineapples. Yep. That's a car stuffed full of pineapples, so full. And like even the back seat, you can see them through the window here. So full they can't get the back shut. And you can see this wire. They just kind of bungee cord the back down so it doesn't flop everywhere. And they just hope none of those fall out. So we thought that was pretty crazy. And then this here on the right is basically your drive-through. My mom wanted to get some snacks for the road, so this was at one of our pit stops to find a restroom and whatever. So she stopped and got some things. These things right here are what we got. They're like peanut butter sticks. They're just long sticks that you just crunch off a bite, and it's made of like peanut paste that they dry and fry and stuff. So they're pretty good. So those are some things we saw on the road. Here's some cars, how they overload the cars, like twice as high, and that's all bananas or plantains right there. There's one piled high. I can't tell what that is on top, but sometimes you'll see goats and sheep hanging off the side too. They just tie their livestock on as well. So it's pretty crazy. So this is a stop we made on the way up to their town. This is a place my dad had always wanted to check out and never got a chance, and he thought it'd be pretty cool. He'd heard about it. Other missionaries and people told him about it. It's called the Songhai Center. And to translate that sign, it says Songhai, Africa, raise your head, Africa stands up. I guess they have an English translation. A complexe de pisciculture moderne means complex of modern pisciculture. I'm not exactly sure what pisciculture is, but basically it was an agricultural plantation in the middle of the city. And these guys are trained in doctorates and master's degrees of how to use agricultural systems and recycle everything. Nothing is wasted. He kept saying that over and over. It was a really cool place. They actually have a school there that they train even young people who are interested in doing this type of thing. And their desire is to teach the local people. Something he said that really struck me is Africa is not poor. We just haven't learned how to use everything that's in front of us. I thought that was a really good perspective. And so that's what they were trying to do here. And the reason we were interested is because Songhai, the name of that is actually the name of the people group we worked with in Mali when I grew up. But we asked the guy, and it really doesn't have any direct connection to that people group or culture. That's just a very common term and title because the Songhai Empire covered a good bit of West Africa back in the day. So, but this is the waiting room. We were waiting for our tour guide, and there were some other people there. There's Joanna and my mom in the back, and then me and my dad. So these are some of the things we saw on the tour. They have livestock, and these are some ostriches. They've got all kinds of animals that they use eggs. They use droppings for fertilization and everything. They don't let anything go to waste. This right here is an oven where they're making some syrup. I can't remember what kind. They're making some sort of syrup, the equivalent to our maple syrup. They're cooking it and have a whole process. This was their pottery center where they made all the things out of clay. This right here on the left is a bucket they took and they turned it into a water filter by putting these things, which to us just look like flower pots. But you just put a flower pot and they make it to just the right size to fit inside this plastic bucket. Then put a spout on the bottom, gesundheit. And you pour water in the flower pot and the clay becomes a natural filter and it filters the water. And so they're trying to teach people how to use this to filter your water. You won't become sick as often and everything. So it's really cool. And they had a whole kiln there too. These are palm nuts. I always mix up palm and canola for some reason. These are palm nuts and they come in clusters like this here on the top. They come in clusters and then they have to like break up the clusters, put them in this thing and spin it. And it shakes them up, takes all the husks off. And then they had a couple other machines that they can press them and make oil out of it. So palm oil and some other products. And then after the tour, so those are just a few things on the tour. They also had like big fisheries, like man-made ponds with huge catfish in them and other things that they were telling us about. It's really interesting, really good to see that local people are trying to teach their own people how to do this. And then they had a restaurant. So we ate at the restaurant for lunch after we finished the tour. This is us sitting in the restaurant. And can anyone guess what this is? My brother Andrew got it. No, not fish.
Octopus.
No, you're getting closer to the rareness. That's cow tongue. My brother ordered cow tongue just because he'd never had it and wanted to try it. I was tempted, but I just got normal chicken or something. But yeah, he thought it was okay. He gave a couple strange faces, but he's like, not bad. So it's not his favorite, but he liked it. I think my dad got it at another restaurant later to try it too. But that's another thing you can get on some of their menus is cow tongue. And so then we got home, and the next day, our first day back where my parents live, this is what we did.
This right here is an orphanage for AIDS kids. So it started out, these two single missionary women were taking care of the moms, and then the moms would pass away from AIDS, and they ended up keeping the kids. Currently, they have about 10 kids between boys and girls. They've got 2 dorms for each, and bathrooms on either end with showers, which actually were pretty nice. I was surprised. And a big concrete slab that they would do sports and stuff on, and a little, what a pipe? What would you call that?
What?
The hangover.
Concrete slab? Oh, they call it a pyote.
Yeah, where they would do lessons and stuff so that they would have some shade so it would be cooler for them when they're learning. So we went there on Saturday for birthday parties. So a lot of the kids, when they're born, they don't go to the hospital. It's just home birth, so a lot of them do not have birthdays, do not know their birthdays. So if they go to the hospital for any health issues, they're given basically just a January birthday of as close to the year as they can figure out. So they celebrated several birthdays all at once in January while we were there. So we went there and we had a really yummy meal with them. We played games. We did balloon animals, which Dad hooked up a air pump to the front of the engine of the truck. And we were able to blow them up. And then Andrew was really good at making the balloon animals and like hats and swords and all sorts of stuff. The kids had such a blast. They were so adorable. I wanted to keep them. And then when we were done eating and playing, we went on a tour with the missionary ladies to just see all of the stuff on the campus. We saw the kitchen, the bedrooms. They have a garden where they're trying to be mostly self-sustaining and provide food for the kids. And it was just really encouraging.
This is the kitchen they have there. Very big open space and really nice facilities comparatively to what most people have. Then there's a group picture we got with all the kids. The 3 girls, the 2 on the right and the 1 on the left, are the girls of another missionary family that lived on the same property as my parents. They work with SIM, so we got to do some things with them while we were there.
Which SIM is not our mission, but
yeah. All right, and then Sunday we went to church. This is what church looks like there. That's a choir in the back, standing and singing. You'll see a video of them singing here in a minute. But just wooden benches, and like we were on almost the back bench, so that's how small the room is. The whole building could probably fit inside this room easily. So So there's the musicians. They actually had an accordion, which is very rare, and he was doing a great job. So there's a guy playing an accordion, a guy doing the keyboard, very similar to what I do on the piano, playing chords and stuff, and is really good. And they actually had a drum kit, which is also very rare, like an actual drum set that the guy was doing in the back. So those are the musicians. And then I believe this is the video of, oh, maybe not, but there, you notice there's two guys at the pulpit. That's because most services over there are done in two different languages, and usually in French and the local language, and they have to go back and forth and translate. So usually the French guy is the one leading the service, and then the other guy is just there to translate what he says for those who don't have the education to know French. So here's what the music is like. Sorry for the sound quality. My phone So that gives you an idea. That's very common in their songs to have a lead singer and then the rest of the choir echoes them. And that's usually for like the choir numbers. When we're singing as a congregation, everyone's singing together. So here's a closer picture of the two guys. One of them's preaching, the other one's translating. Here's us sitting in our rows. It's also traditional, not always, but quite often the ladies sit on one side and the men sit on the other. So here's me, my brother, and my dad, and then the ladies were sitting on the other side. And my mom sat behind the ladies to try to lean forward and translate things for them as the service went on.
She was between us.
Oh, okay. So Sunday afternoon, our first Sunday there was my mom's birthday. And Sunday afternoon, my parents these are all Christian students who go to the local university. I don't think the university is Christian, but they're all students from churches up in the north that come down to the city to go to the university. And they know my parents from when they worked in the north. And every Sunday afternoon, if they're free and if my parents are free, they'll come over and just spend all afternoon with my parents, hanging out. My mom and the ladies will cook food together. And a couple of these guys actually remembered me and my brother from when we were up north. And so it was really great to catch up with them and everything. So this is some of the group. Sometimes they have 15 to 20 college-age kids in their living room, which is really cool. So it was really cool to catch up with them, and we played Jenga. Jenga and Uno are their two favorite games. They will play those two games all afternoon. And they absolutely loved it. So we had a fun time playing with them and catching up. And then this is them singing Happy Birthday to my mom in French.
3, 2,
He's counting down.
1, 0. Joyeux anniversaire, joyeux anniversaire, joyeux anniversaire,
And they call her
joyeux anniversaire.
So yeah, that was really cool to be able to do that. Monday, we went to a cashew factory run by a South African missionary couple. I'll just go through these pretty quickly. Big factory. I don't know if any of you have seen cashew fruit or know where cashews actually come from, but the nut grows on the outside of the fruit. You see the nut appear first, and then the fruit grows between the stem and the nut. And they call it a cashew apple. This is the finished product. We weren't allowed to take pictures inside just because of the technology they use and stuff. But we had to wear these outfits, and my dad teased a couple times, said it looks like we were joining a cult or something. But this is the finished product ready to ship out, these big bricks, and you can see how big those are. I tried lifting one. It's like 50 pounds or more, really dense stuff. But they like sort the cashews by size, whether they have spots or not. They're very particular. But it gives jobs to like several hundred people, and a lot of them are believers, and the director, who is a missionary, encourages them, share the gospel with your neighbor while you're working together, picking shells off nuts. Talk about the gospel and everything. So it's a really cool opportunity. And so here's a close-up of the cashew fruit. It is one of the weirdest fruits I have ever tasted. And Joanna got to taste it for the first time, and there's a video here of her tasting it. You can just bite into the fruit like an apple. It's very soft and spongy. I say it's got the texture between a pear and a sponge, like if you're trying to bite a sponge. So it's really weird. Very tart, semi-sweet fruit juice. And so here's a video of Joanna trying. Go for it. Just bite it like an apple.
Go for it, just an apple.
That right there tells you everything you need to know about
It's got a
passion
tanginess
fruit.
and a dryness in your tongue, in your teeth.
And yeah, the other thing about the juice is
Like
it
it's something that's not meant to be eaten.
So I said, "What'd you think?" She said, "I think it's something that's not meant to be eaten." But the juice will actually make your mouth feel like you took a mouthful of just flour or powder or something. It dries and like puts a dry film, powdery film on your teeth, and it gives you a really weird feeling. But a lot of people just snack on it.
Not worth
I ate the whole thing and everything. I liked it just for the experience. So.
You're rude.
And then later that day, Joanna got to go shopping with my mom and Maddie.
So that was something I was kind of used to from Zambia, but a little different. Like this area was a lot more crowded and a lot busier. It was right on a main road, so there's traffic you had to be aware of. This was when we went shopping for our material and stuff to make our outfits. Mm-hmm. And so we got our material, stopped at different stores, haggled for prices. That's a major thing there is haggling, which sounds kind of like rude and like you shouldn't be doing that in a store, but it's actually like if you don't haggle, you're just a white American.
Yeah.
So haggling is actually a way to show that you belong there and that you actually care and build relationships. I saw that firsthand. His mom is really good at it.
And enjoys it. She enjoys
It
haggling.
was a lot of fun watching her haggle prices down and the different shops and stuff. Even had to play the whole walk away thing a couple times to get prices down to where we wanted it. So we got our material and looked around a couple different places for some stuff Mom was needing, but didn't really find that, so we ended up going home shortly after. But yeah, it was really cool just seeing all the different stuff. They sell anything from veggies to fruit to meat to hygiene products, material, anything you can think of really. You can probably find at a different little booths along the way.
Yep, and most of the markets are open air, just little shade shacks or umbrellas set up along the side. And this one guy, he'll just walk down the street with his carrots, trying to sell carrots. So really different experience from shopping here in the States. The next day, we got to go to a farm run by a missionary couple. He is native Beninese, and she is Swiss-German, I believe. And so she's a white Swiss person, and he's a Beninese. But they got married. She came over to work with the mission and met him, and they fell in love, got married, have a couple cute kids. We didn't see the kids. The kids were at school while we were visiting them. But they own a farm, a very large piece of land and a farm outside of town. So we went to visit them because, again, they work with another mission board, but my parents had gotten to know them and wanted us to see what they did there. So a very big piece of land, walking through a lot of trees and just these little deer trails you have to follow. But these buildings are something they just finished building them, and now they're starting to develop the inside. These are little 3 duplexes, that very similar ministry to the orphanage as far as trying to reach single moms, especially those who are struggling with AIDS or illness. So each side of these duplexes can house one family unit. They're used to living in one-room round houses. They even have little ramps up the porch to help get your motorcycle up on there, so you can lock your motorcycle in the porch. But it was really cool to see that they're doing this, and they're trying to do it as a way to attract more help on the farm. They say, if you can help work our land and help us with this agricultural plantation, we'll give you free housing and food and all of that. So they're trying to use it as a ministry to reach out to local families. This is a lizard that Joanna found when we walked inside one of those buildings. He was just sitting there because this was like mid-morning, and the door had been locked, and he hadn't warmed up in the sun yet. So lizards are cold-blooded, so he was super sluggish. And if he could have, he would have run away. But he was so sluggish, he couldn't. He moved his head a little bit. You could see his eyes blinking, but Joanna got to pet a lizard. And he was a big one. Like, he was pretty big, and that's unusual that they get that big over there. But they're as popular as squirrels are here. So that was pretty cool. And then, they also have spiders. That one was about this big. They can get pretty big. That's a spider you'll see a lot of. They're super flat and can fit in the tightest spots. It looks like a spider that's been smushed flat, but that's just how they grow. So Joanna doesn't like spiders, so she didn't look at that one too close.
No.
But there were also cats. A mama with some kittens and everything. So she got her kitty fix while we were gone. And then here's some pictures of their plantation and gardens. Those are either bananas or plantains. Again, it's really hard to tell the difference when they're not cooked yet. And then that's a papaya tree on the right there with some cabbage in the garden behind it. Some more pictures of the garden, a little reservoir they have. This right here on the left is a beehive. He just took a big piece of thin like metal sheeting for roofing, like the tin roofing, rolled it up, and then put like an old piece of rotten wood or something with holes in it. And the bees go in there, and he purposely placed beehives around the property to help with pollination and stuff. And that's something most locals just don't even fathom. They don't have the education to know that bees help the plants. And so he has the education, and he's trying to teach the locals. These are some things you can do to help. He also planted grass on purpose around his property so that his roaming livestock have places to feed. And people are like, why are you using this perfectly good soil to just plant grass? Plant food. He's like, well, I need to move the grass around so my livestock will move around and help with the land. So again, just trying to educate the locals in how to do these things. And this was on the way back. We stopped at another mission property that it isn't really used a lot anymore. There are a couple ladies working on a loom and doing weaving, and I got a video of it. It's long, so I won't play the whole thing, but it's a double loom. So two ladies can work on the same frame, but they're each working on their own design. So it's really cool. And as you can see, this one lady has a baby on her back. That's very popular. Just take a big piece of cloth and carry the baby on your back in a little sling back there. So. And these babies will sleep through anything. You'd see babies like that on the back of a motorcycle weaving in and out of traffic, and the baby's completely out. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, it was really neat. I had never seen a double loom like this before, so I thought it was pretty cool. And then we also stopped at the local hospital on the way back. This is a Christian hospital started by missionaries way back, and now local African Christians are running it. In fact, there's a picture here in a minute, we saw a guy we knew from up north who does traveling and does clinics in towns. But again, we didn't take a lot of pictures because by American standards, it is really sad to see how little room they have for the large need and everything. So we didn't take a whole lot of pictures. But this is a new dentist chair they just got, a portable dentist chair. And this is the trained dentist who he even wanted to show us like all the little cool things it did because he was really excited about it. But this is the sign for the hospital, Hôpital Évangélique de Bembereke. Bembereke was the town it's in. So that's one of the biggest hospitals in the area that a lot of people go to. But it was super crowded and really just sad seeing the thing. Here's us this is Josue or Joshua. And he is one of the Christian trained doctors there. And he's one of the ones who helped start a clinic up in the north where we can't travel anymore. But he does a lot of traveling and mobile clinics and stuff. But he just happened to be there and we ran into him while we were touring the hospital. So it was really cool to catch up with him because he's from one of our main churches.
Okay, so the next day we actually got to go to a deaf school, which was near and dear to my heart. I love sign language. I love talking in sign language. It's really cool because even though we were in Africa, they still use ASL with just like a couple tweaks here and there, so I could actually understand what they were saying. This one is smaller, and they have a mix of deaf and hearing students because of finances, because deaf kids will often be just dropped and left there because they're considered undesired by their families, so they have no one to provide for their finances. So the school brings in hearing kids as well with families that would pay to balance out the costs. They also are working on a garden to, again, be self-sustaining. But that's struggling because they have no walls. So there's animals from all over the neighborhood and people just kind of trampling through. So right now they're actually working on building a wall around the property. That's going to take a little while.
Video.
This is a video of some of the greetings from the
Oui, ici.
He asked, can someone share a verse with us? A verse he had memorized. I didn't catch the whole verse, but it started out with something about the heavens and the earth. He was quoting a Bible verse before.
So this is the youngest class. That was one of their greetings. The youngest class actually did not have any deaf students in it. All the deaf students were in the older grades. So that was like kindergarten, pre-K age.
Here's a video of one of the older ones. They're going to sing a song for us. That's their greeting. When she comes into the room and greets them, they have a greeting that they do. And then she always did this, some sign pointed to her ear to ask those who are deaf, can you stand to show us how many deaf students are in the class? Here she's introducing us in sign language. She said, this is missionary Pastor Ken, his son Mark, and his son's wife Joanna. And she's spelling out the and then she told us this is level such and such. And their grade levels are very different from here. So yeah, she just took us, we'll move on for time's sake, but she took us to each of the rooms, had us meet each class.
The wall they were building to help protect the garden and stuff.
Some of the garden they have there, and she said each of the kids has their own like 1 or 2 plots that they take care of. They're learning how to take care of their own little garden. And then there were some workers trying to lay in the foundations of the wall around the property. So, and then on the way back, this is just to show you what some of the roads are like in town. That's the main road right there. And that's washout from all the rain. And they just find a way around it. And motorcycles can do it a lot easier than a big car that my dad was driving. So he has to find like the least dangerous way to drive the vehicle through the ruts. Also, littering is not an issue, as you can see. In fact, here's a sign. I don't know if any of you can read it, but basically that sign says, interdit means forbidden, strictly forbidden. And it's basically saying it's strictly forbidden to litter. And look what's right around the sign. That's like the trash dump for the city. So again, there's rules, but corruption is so rampant. Really, most people don't pay attention. And any of the police, the officials, they will just like let you get by without the rules as long as you slip them a little money now and then. So we went out to eat. Yeah.
So there's 2 other girls who are working with the mission for another couple months. They are on a short-term trip, just like I think about 6 months. But they kind of became really close to mom and dad as well. So we all went out to eat Wednesday night. There wasn't a lot of room in the truck that we took because the mom and dad's vehicle was having issues, so we borrowed one of the other missionaries' trucks. So Andrew and Mark and I rode in the back of the truck, which was a lot of fun, while the girls all rode in the cab. And while we were there, it's kind of like you go up to almost like fast food, but not. So you go up to the window and order your stuff and then go sit down and they bring it to you. So we got a bunch of food. Lines aren't really a thing, so you kind of just had to jump in there and place your order, which is fun if you don't speak the language. But we got a bunch of different food there. Again, you can see the plantains. So from there, we just had a good time fellowshipping and talking and stuff. And as we were finishing up, just like me, the girls didn't finish their food. So they wanted to get a to-go box, but the restaurant wanted to charge them for a to-go box. So they weren't having it. But the water you get there, you have to buy, and it's in bottles because you don't trust fresh water there. So we had a water bottle on the table, so they dished out the rest of the water and borrowed Dad's knife, cut the top off, and put the food in the bottle. The entire staff was laughing at us. We didn't care. Eventually, our waiter was like, okay, I'll bring you a bag. We're like, too little, too late. Like, no thanks.
So yeah, this is an example of some of the food you'll find. This stuff in the middle is called pot. It's basically a bean paste that they boil, and it has the consistency of Jell-O when you put it on your plate, but then you break it apart and eat it, and it feels like mashed potatoes in your mouth. So it's really unique how they make that stuff. All right. So the next day we had just a fun time of fellowship, hanging out at the house. The missionary kids came over and played. And Joanna and Maddie got henna done. It's like a temporary tattoo that they draw on your arm. And so while Maddie was getting hers done, Joanna played with the lady who was doing the henna. She brought her little girl. Very energetic, just a big ball of energy. So I sat
cute.
across from them and we were hitting a balloon back and forth. Then Joanna was getting her henna done. That's a close-up of how she does it. And it's just a bag of the dye, and she just snips the very tip of the bag off and just squirts it onto her arm and draws a design.
My hair is still stained from it.
Yeah. It was really cool. But other than that, we just hung out. One of the university students who had recently gotten married came over. She hadn't been able to make it, and she shared her testimony with us in French. It was really cool to hear how she got saved out of Islam and some other things. And so really cool just sharing the testimony. And Dad or me and Andrew would translate for the girls as we did conversation. But great time of talking together. Friday we went to... this is a second property. This is the Bible school, and there's Colin Ovenell. And this is one of the things that I would probably be helping out with is teaching in the Bible school now and then. So this is one of the Bible school classes, just 5 or 6 guys. And I think he was teaching on end times or something at that point. And we got to sit in on the last 5 minutes of the class before they were taking a break. So that was really cool. He's got a chalkboard up there. And again, this is something that we might be able to get involved with. And then the rest of the day we went into... This is TWR, Trans World Radio, owns a radio station out there, and they have a really nice lake next to it with what we call the cabin, but it's just a very nice for missionaries to go out and spend a night at the lake if they want. It's got beds and guest rooms. So we drove out there, and we get to ride on the roof of the car when we're not driving on main roads. That's a lot of fun. So we drove out there. This is a new conference room they're making out of a container. They just put a container in there, and they're making a new conference room. So we went out there. This is pictures of the lake. Just enjoyed some time. They've got a dock and you can go swimming. Come on. There's my mom and dad and Raina, their dog. And they've got a nice fire pit, picnic table. We were checking out the dock. Had a nice picnic meal together out there at the lake. So that was a lot of fun. And then Colin Ovenell met us there, and he brought his boys with him. And they took us out to the new property that's just been purchased by our mission board that Joe Marshall is working on developing into the new property for us to live. They just bought the property, and it's barely developed yet, but he's been drilling some wells. That's a termite mound on the right that we got to climb on. That stuff is like hard as cement, but you see those all over the place. So road on the roof, this is pictures of the property, very undeveloped yet. You can tell it used to be someone's field. But he's drilled a couple of wells there. This is the current well that's done on the left. And on the right is the old one that he hit bedrock, so he had to try again. But they've got solar panels out there to help power the equipment. So he's still just barely developing it. There's the well hole. So this is the property that we would be helping develop and build on, where the missionaries will hopefully be able to live since we can't move back north. Then the next day, we just had a family fun day with the 2 missionary families. This is all of us together that were out there. Got to take some naps in hammocks and swim in the lake and all that. So second Sunday was very similar, but it was very packed. There's hardly any room in there. You can see how close we are to the people in front of us in church. And that's how packed the church was the second Sunday we were there. So that was pretty cool. This is an example of their songbook. No music, just the chord up at the top so the musicians know what key to play in, and they just memorize what song goes with what words. And they're laying foundations for a new Sunday school building right next to the church as well. So that's an exciting development. This is a church my parents go to.
So on the way home that day, Mom needed some more stuff, so we stopped at another African drive-through, basically, where you can stop on the side of the road and grab some stuff on the way home. We needed some fruit and bread and stuff, so stopped there. So Sunday evenings, we didn't really touch on this, but Sunday evenings are missionary time together. So all the missionaries from our team, FBM, get together at the North property at the Ovenells and share testimonies, share a Bible study, and talk about stuff. But we also got to see a bunch of their animals. That's a duiker deer, and then the tortoise. It was huge.
All right, and then we drove down to the Capitol after our week was up. Some more sights on the road, guy holding jugs. Cotton is a huge export there. So you'll see all kinds of trucks just overflowing with cotton on the way. And we got to stop at a medical clinic that was being done. So there's a little church building. They had stuff set up inside, a waiting area outside, free medical care. You can see a sonogram that's plugged into an iPad right there. And the triage or pharmacy right there is the checkup table. And then Joanna was playing with the kids outside. There's some little kids that really warmed up to her, and they're playing peekaboo and hide and seek and stuff. So they really love playing around while they're waiting for their turn to be seen. So this is the waiting area, check-in, and then triage, just quick basic checkup. And there's a guy here sharing the gospel with people who are waiting in line. So this is a huge ministry. Free medical care will bring the entire village out, and you have incredible opportunities to share the gospel. So these are this is an GDM, Grace Dental Mission. It's headed up by the Colin's brother-in-law, and he comes out once or twice a year, and they travel to different villages and give free medical care. They usually have a dentist with them as well. This is my brother with his camera. He was taking pictures of the kids, and they absolutely loved it. So had a lot of fun there. And then our last day in the Capitol, we got to go to the Artisanal, which is basically the market for tourists, where everyone's trying to sell their souvenirs and stuff. So got some fun things there. It was a lot of fun. Again, we kind of talked about the bargaining to build friendships. You could even watch some of the people making their things. Here's some examples of some things you could get, these little caps or hand-carved art and stuff. This was a loom where they were making hammocks, and they have one of the hammocks sitting there. So it's really cool to see all the people making their stuff. Then last day, I'll just zip through these. This was a town out on stilts, out in the lagoon. And this, honestly, is a completely different culture than I've ever seen. I felt like a tourist there because I'd never seen anything like this. The entire town, that's all man-made, like reefs, so to speak. They take palm branches and stick them in the mud. All this entire lagoon is only like 5 to 8 feet deep. And they set up fishing nets to catch their fish, and that's the huge export. But they have to bring everything in. Those are crates of soda bottles she's bringing in from town. But all the houses are up on stilts. And there's a hotel. You could go out there and spend a night on these houses that are on stilts. There's a hallway of the hotel. That's what it looks like. I don't know if you can tell, but that's like a restaurant, outdoor eating area. It was all leaning and rotting, and I was like you'd be sitting at an angle trying to eat at the restaurant there. So it was crazy. But this is one of the rooms at the hotel, and honestly, it wasn't bad. Now, I know they were probably showing us their best, nicest room, but it honestly wasn't bad. Yeah, you'd have to put the mosquito net to guard against mosquitoes at night, but it looked pretty nice. And Joanna found another cat, so she was having fun. These are kids coming home from school. Like, even the school, like, all the kids have to go in boats. And you'd see some of the kids just pulling their way down the water to take their kids home.
And bailing the boat out as they went.
Yeah, and another kid's bailing the boat as they go because it's got a leak or something. So they do have solar panels set up to help power different things. This is a fresh water source. They probably drilled down through the mud far enough to find fresh water and have a pump. So every day has to come and fill up their barrels with fresh water because all the other water is salt because it connects to the sea. And then this is the school right here with all the kids getting out of school and loading up the boats to go home. So it's just really cool. And beautiful sunset on the way home. There's the girls in the tour boat that we were taking. It was almost an hour's boat ride to get out there. So really cool. And then we ate at a restaurant that was right there on the bay. So just beautiful. And then this is a boatload of people going back out to the village after their day in town, getting all the stuff in the market. They had these bigger boats that would just take everyone back to the village out on stilts. And then Joanna found a fresh coconut and actually enjoyed it. For some reason, she likes African coconut better than American coconut.
It tastes real.
Yeah, it tastes real. Had a flat tire, so we had to find the one shade tree around to park under and change the tire. I helped my dad change it. Then we got to go on a boat tour through the mangrove tunnels. There are a couple places we stopped that we could climb up on them and everything. But again, very shallow water. Most of the time you could jump out and wade through the water, swim around if you wanted. It was really cool. But they're working on building a big land bridge across this area. So for the tour tour boat to get to the spot he wanted, the mangrove tunnels, we had to go through this tiny, tight tunnel. And here's a video of
This site is actually on the side of the road. It's not even
he said,
the road.
hands and arms inside the boat, please, with all the ducts and everything. So it's super tight. This time, when he went through, he had to lean against it. My mom and So, and then we ate at another beachside restaurant. There's another restaurant. These guys right here are carrying a fishnet. They're all working together to carry a fishnet on their shoulders. Just what some of the restaurants look like. Again, they're geared toward tourists. This was our last time together before we got on the plane to come back. Found an ice cream shop that they actually have in the capital. Got some ice cream and spent some last time together. And these are just some of the sights you'd see on the main road through the city. This is just one section of like a really long mural that these artists would come and just paint all kinds of stuff on this mural. It was very beautiful artwork. And then this was an abandoned plane on the beach. My dad said someone had found a plane at the airport and some businessman had said, hey, can we get that plane? They just dragged it down the beach just down from the airport. They wanted to turn it into like a restaurant that's on the beach of this abandoned plane, but then they ran out of money and now it's just sitting there abandoned. So, and that happens all the time over there. People try to start stuff and run out of money because they don't know the business planning side of things as far as how to plan long term. And they run out of money very quickly. So then we flew out and that was the end of our trip. So sorry for taking extra time, but we were really excited for this trip. Thank you for the opportunities. Again, you can come back and ask questions tonight if you'd like to hear more about what it is as far as ministry that we're looking at. We mentioned a few things here. We're really excited as we continue keeping in touch with the missionaries there. So if Joanna wants to take a seat, I do have a couple just quick thoughts I want to share from Scripture. Promise I'll be quick. But a theme that we've seen in our lives throughout this whole thing is don't get too comfortable. Even when we moved here to this church, we were just getting comfortable at our last church, just getting to know the people really well. And that's one of the first things Joanna said when we heard about that. She said, but I'm getting comfortable. I just looked at her and was like, wait, what did you just say? And I think quite often, even in our Christian lives, we tend to get too comfortable with where we're at. And even in a good way of thinking, this is where God wants me. Why would he want me to move? But it's good to always be open and investigate every opportunity. So as we think through Scripture, who are some people in Scripture that weren't God had move around so much and they weren't comfortable? Noah, he was ridiculed and called crazy. He faced the impossible, but he trusted God and was saved because of it. He went through a lot of uncomfortable scenarios as he was building a boat for something no one had ever seen before. Abraham, he was called to leave his homeland and wander, always moving around and never really knowing where God would have him next. Joseph, he was constantly put through trials and mistreated, but always trusted God and was used for God's purpose. Moses, he started out comfortable growing up in Pharaoh's palace, but then he had to flee, and he was just getting comfortable with his life in the desert and a new bride and all of that when God called him to go back and free the children of Israel. And Moses was very reluctant. He tried every excuse he could to get out of it. And then in the wilderness, he always had to put up with the complaining people of Israel. And so he was never very comfortable, and yet he still faithfully followed God. Gideon, he didn't want to be a leader, and he required multiple proofs from God before he would accept what God was calling him to do. And then, of course, there's Jonah, who was reluctant to follow God and always complaining. So even in the Bible, we see there are people who are not comfortable. But some verses I thought of that talk about this, Matthew 4, verses 18 to 22. When Jesus called his disciples, he said, drop everything you're doing and follow me. Matthew 4, 18 to 22. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then he said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. They immediately left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two others, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. So again, they left the only life they knew to follow Jesus because they knew it was the right thing to do. They left what they were comfortable with. Luke 9, verses 57 to 62. That's where Jesus tells someone that he doesn't have a place to lay his head. If you're going to follow me, I'm going to be moving everywhere. You're not going to know where you're going to sleep night to night. Jesus was never comfortable. And yet people still tried to give him different excuses why is not to follow him. But he made it very clear there's a cost to following him. And then Luke 14:25-33 is where Jesus tells them, count the cost and forsake all to follow me. Luke 14:25-33. Now, great multitudes, I may have the wrong passage. So just some things I thought of from Scripture is very clear that Christ was never comfortable, and he made it very clear to his followers, if you're going to follow me, you need to be ready to go whenever I call you and wherever I call you at a moment's notice. So it's something we've been learning, and that's really right where we're at right now. We're counting the cost of serving him in Africa and in the planning and preparing stage. So Luke 9:23 was a good theme, I thought, to all of this, which says, then he said to them all, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. So it is a daily exercise of making sure we're not getting too comfortable where we're at, and we're ready to follow God wherever he calls. So, thoughts I wanted to share today, are you willing to take up your cross? Are you willing to deny personal comfort for the cause of Christ? And as you can see from our presentation, it's not the most comfortable over there. Sometimes you're lacking for a place to get clean water. Sometimes you're lacking for a decent bathroom. Wi-Fi and phone signal are very sparse. But it's something we're willing to do because we feel this is where God's calling us. So we appreciate your further prayers as we continue making all the decisions necessary to work in that direction. We appreciate your prayers for my parents and the other missionaries over there, and your help as we continue looking forward to what God may have for us over there. So I hope that was encouraging to you, and that, again, if you have any questions, you can come back tonight and ask a few questions. Again, I apologize for going a little long, but I hope it was enjoyable to see some pictures and what we got to do, and thank you again for the opportunity. Let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity you gave us and for the opportunity to share. I pray that you would continue to work in each of our hearts and help us not to get too comfortable where we're at, but to always be looking for where you would have us go next and who you would have us serve and encourage. And even if it's in a way that's not comfortable or easy for us, that we'd be willing to do the hard things that bring the most result and benefit for you and your glory. Pray that you would just guide and direct us as we go forward this week, and give us safety this afternoon as we drive through the snow and the weather. In your name I pray. Amen.